And we're live. There we go. Hey, welcome to Science 9. Lesson 1, we want to talk a little bit about the scientific process. This notion of why is science so important? It gives you a way of thinking about the world, a way of analyzing about the world. So I wrote down here, the first thing that we do in the scientific process is we identify the problem or the question. In fact, what we do is we decide what we want to measure. My handwriting is atrocious, which is why I type most stuff. If you can't read something, I will never make fun of you. If you ask, Mr. Dueck, what does that say? It's my handwriting. And believe it or not, it's improved. Create a question about the following situation. The relationship between sunscreen and sunburns. You know what a good question might be? Does sunscreen prevent sunburn? Maybe it's all a lie. And what we mean by a question, we mean a question that is testable, that you can measure, that you can test, that you can answer. A question that wouldn't be testable, for example, the famous example is if I say to you, I can survive being shot in the heart by a bullet. Because there's only one way to test that, and no one's going to let me test it that way. Right? That's an example of an untestable question, even though we're pretty sure we know what the answer is. There's no way to test it scientifically. It's kind of a morbid one, but whatever. The relationship and degree of doneness and baking time for cookies. Does baking time affect doneness? You know what? I think we can be even more specific. How about this? Does longer baking time affect doneness? Yep. Isn't it mostly about the heat? So what you've done, thank you, Brooke, candy for you for pointing something out that we didn't talk about yet. We would now have to introduce the concept of different variables. We would have to say, is time the only issue? Wait a minute, my oven has a knob and I can adjust the temperature. Maybe there's a difference between 500 degrees for 10 minutes and 200 degrees for 30 minutes. Yeah. But certainly this would be my starting point, and then I would have to eliminate all the other variables. In fact, maybe I anticipated you. The next one says the relationship between oven temperature and length of time required to bake the cookies. Hey, does higher, it's length of time. Yeah, so it does, sure, higher temperature affect the length of time. A fairly good show that I love, which actually does a pretty good job of modeling the scientific method, is Mythbusters. In Mythbusters, they start with a question, and then they try and answer it. Now, towards the end, they have to abandon the scientific method because so many of the myths are false, and if they want to replicate them, it usually means gunpowder and C4 and bigger and better, and that's great entertainment as well. But how many of you watched Mythbusters before? Any of you see their live show when they came here? I'm the only one? Okay. So what we do is we get a question, and then we create a hypothesis. The hypothesis is an educated guess. It doesn't even have to be what you think is right. So for example, I could, as my hypothesis, say, I think sunscreen has no effect on sunburn. That'd be a fairly easy one to disprove, I suspect, but that could be your hypothesis. You use the information that you have to make a prediction that is based on your observation. I've seen Mythbusters live, and then also 2 years ago, Adam and Jamie came to UBC and just did a question and answer session, and I went to that as well. And Adam Savage often is asked, what myth have you tested that gave you the most unexpected result? And he always gives the same answer. He says, we were shooting in South Africa. It was for Shark Week. We were supposed to be out on the water, but the weather was lousy, and we were sitting there. We had 2 days before we could go back out, but we're down in South Africa. It's costing money, so we kind of asked, what could we test? And someone suggested, why don't you test whether elephants are afraid of mice? Okay. That was their hypothesis. Are elephants afraid of mice? That was their question. Their hypothesis was, to be honest, elephants are not afraid of mice, and to their shock and amazement, they seem to be. They ran a nice test. Okay. You try and set it up in the format of an if-then. The fancy word for this is if condition, then result. Going to my elephant example, Adam figured if an elephant sees a mouse, then nothing will happen. That was their hypothesis. Turns out if an elephant, I'm having a hard time talking. She sells seashells by the seashore. Blah, blah, blah. If an elephant sees a mouse, something does happen. Caden, could you read me that one, for example? That's a good hypothesis, and I think that's an experiment that probably could be proved. I'm just speculating. Sorry, I'll leave you alone now. Hey, if I study for a test, then I'll do well. Okay. Create a hypothesis, and if-then for the following situation. I wonder what will happen if I only eat chocolate. So we're going to start out, if I only eat chocolate, then what might your hypothesis be? Happiness will increase, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. You know what, Mr. Dueck? No wimping out, learning names. Kevin, was that a hand up or just a twitch with your pen? So, well, it is now.
Yes. If you only eat chocolate, you could have you can get really fat.
Okay, then I will gain weight. I will get that. Probably there are other nutritional issues as well.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how much iron or vitamin C or whatever there is in chocolate.
Probably get pretty bad acne.
Okay. Actually, as I understand it, because that's a very common hypothesis that is still perpetuated, that sugar and fatty foods leads to acne, that has long since been disproven. That's an example of a hypothesis that was believed for a long time, but actually is not true. Most studies show acne is caused often by stress, which is why typically it often comes up before a big date or a test or something like that. Go figure. So eat what you want, but healthy. I wonder what will happen if I mix red paint and yellow paint. If I mix red and yellow, I'll what? Yeah?
Create orange.
You know what? And that's great. Or you could even say, I'll create blue, and that would be one you would disprove, right? A lot of research right now is also disproving stuff that we thought was true, hence the acne reference. And now we come full circle back to Brooke. You need to identify the variables. These are the things that I'm going to typing just so I can write a bit larger. Great Grace, yes? Is that big enough that you can see back there okay? Because I'm not in mid-season form. I got to get all the bank page right. Things that change during the course of the experiment. In our cookie oven, yeah, temperature could change, absolutely. Even the type of baking sheet might play a difference. Maybe some sheets spread heat better than others. I don't know. I'm not much of a baker. And there are two main ways of, I don't think I'm going to be able to fit this in. I'll have to handwrite it. Categorizing them. Categorizing. And the way we categorize them are independent. And what's the other one that goes with independent? Dependent. The independent variable is also often called the manipulated, and the dependent variable is often called the responding. So, Brooke, going back to your cookie example, what I would do to remove temperature is I would decide before the experiment I was always going to use the same temperature, so that's no longer a changing variable. The only thing I'm going to change is the length of time it's in the oven for. In fact, we talk about qualitative versus quantitative variables. And unfortunately, these words sound very much alike. Quantitative, think the word quantity, and I hope that's a word that you know what it means. Qualitative, think like equality. Qualitative is to do with, I gave you the word, a property that can't be measured. Color. How purple is that? I don't know. Purple. State, solid, liquid, or gas. It's either, it is one of them, but it's, wow, how liquid is that? It's a liquid. How solid is that? It's a solid. Let me think of another one here. Well, I'll say this. Magnetism. It's either magnetic or it's not, right? How magnetic is it? You can measure magnetic fields and things, but that's a different kind of a concept. Texture. How rough is it? Well, it's rough. Or not. How smooth is it? Quantitative. Next page over for you guys, I think. Is that right? Turn the page. I'm not going to tell you to turn the page anymore. I'm going to assume in grade 9 you guys can follow along. Quantitative contains measurement. Minutes, 13 grams, 5 meters, 6.2 amps, 5 volts. You can measure it. You can assign a value, frowns, a number to it. So we're going to identify the following as qualitative and quantitative. By the way, I generally try and abbreviate stuff. The problem is both of these begin with the letter Q. So I'm going to abbreviate qualitative as QL and quantitative as QN. You can, if you want to, oh, she told me, I got to check. I had it for a second there. Sierra, I had the S and I couldn't get more than that. Sierra, right? Sierra, if you want to, you can write qualitative or quantitative all the way out of it. But one of the things I'm going to suggest to you guys and push you guys, start abbreviating stuff in your notes. The bowling ball is heavier than the basketball. Is that quantitative or qualitative? What you're really asking is there a number measurement in that statement? Is there a number measurement in that statement? Do you see a number in that statement? Then it's qualitative, not quant. It's QL. The red ball weighs 5 grams more than the blue ball. That is quantitative. Number 2, A and B kind of go together. One says the temperature increased by several degrees. One says the temperature increased by 2 degrees Celsius. Which one of those is quantitative? Which one of those is a measurement? Yep. B. Learn names. Trevor. A is qualitative. 3. A says the water was lukewarm. B says the water was cooler than the oil. Which one of those is... Oh, you know what? I said QN and I'm using QT, didn't I? Well, you know what? Apparently I'm using... Oh, heck. Let's go with what the handout said. If you went QT, that's fine. But I guess I said QN up there. I really should have gone QT because whatever. Hey, 3A, the water was lukewarm. 3B, the water was cooler than the oil. Which one of those is quantitative? It's a trick question. Huh? I heard someone say it, I think. Yeah?
Both are qualitative.
Yeah, none are quantitative. The color changed from blue to green. You know what? I think that's right. How blue? How green? It's not a measurement. Gesundheit. The sound became louder as the vibrations increased. Now, you can measure sound. Sound can be measured in decibels. Actually, it's measured in bells, but decibels is a better unit to use. And if they had that, oh, the sound reached 115 decibels. First of all, we'd all be covering our ears and grimacing in pain, but that would be a quantitative measurement. 5A, 5B, I think we got one of each. Which one of those is a quantitative one? A or B? Nick? B? And since I've been doing that in red, for some reason I'm going color coding. I don't know why, but I am. What about number 6? Yeah, F.
They're
Both.
QN.
Okay. Let's go back to independent and dependent. So the independent, can I fit that in here? I don't think I can. No, it's going to be too big. I'll have to handwrite it. Independent. Grace, is my handwriting big enough for you to read back there? Okay. I know the typing is, but it's my handwriting that's the issue. Variable is one that you, the scientist, change or manipulate. Going back to our cookie example, that would be the timer on the oven. That's the one that I change. The dependent variable is the one that changes as a result of what we did. As a result of what we did. That would be the doneness of the cookie. Now, doneness, I don't know if that would be quantitative. Probably that would be a qualitative measurement. You could kind of say, oh, that's more done than the other one, but I don't know if you can say, hey, that's done 13. Some units. I don't know what even the units for. Maybe, I mean, who knows? Maybe baking companies might have something like that, but I don't know. In fact, the dependent one is often the variable that you are measuring if it's quantitative. Coming full circle to Kevin. Kevin, was it? Yeah. Because I think you were the one, someone said zits or acne or something like it was you. If I eat more chocolate, then I will get zits. What's the independent, what's the one that you can control?
How much chocolate
Yep.
do you eat?
Although between you and me, I can rarely control the amount of chocolate that I eat. Just, if it's there, it's getting eaten. The dependent variable And if you were counting, that would be strange, but it would be quantitative because you'd be measuring. You guys are okay? That's my abbreviation for number? Yes? You've seen that before, I hope? The pound sign. I thought it was hashtag. That's a strange... Oh, shut up. Use logic to fill in the blanks. If I give a plant fertilizer, then it will grow bigger. What do you think the independent variable here would be? I had it and I forgot. Josh, my new kid. Yes?
How much fertilizer you give?
Okay. Can I abbreviate how much with the word amount? And can I abbreviate the word amount with AMT? Because I'm gonna. Can I abbreviate the word fertilizer with FERT? I abbreviate stuff. Or as I like to say, I tend to abbreviate. See, I abbreviated the thing over their head. Okay. Tough audience. Dependent variable. Ev.
How big the plant
Yeah.
gets.
And that you could probably measure, I would imagine, just with a ruler or, well, plants are curvy. You probably, with a piece of string, you would just run it along the branch, and then you would straighten out the string and measure how long the string was or something like that. But it could be done. If I wash the dishes with lots of soap, then they will be cleaner. What's my independent?
How much soap?
Hannah. Amount of soap? Dependent. Danielle, you had your hand up too. What's the dependent? Now, how would you measure cleanliness? That's probably more of a qualitative than quantitative, although maybe you could count the number of food gunk scraps that are left. I don't know. But sure. Cleanliness. Cleanliness. By the way, this experiment, I suspect that initially you would find more soap makes them cleaner, but I also suspect eventually it would just level off because now you're just wasting soap. I suspect. So this might be an example of one, if you were graphing it, it would kind of look like that, and all of a sudden you know what? I've put as much soap as the water can handle. It can't handle anymore. Now all the soap is doing is just floating around. And then, now we're coming back to Brooke, identify the controlled variables. These are other things that could affect your experiment that you have to control for. These are things that need to be, what word did I want to, yep. Oh, I think I got room to type it. Kept constant. So let's go to Evan's fertilizer plant experiment. If you were actually running the experiment, what other conditions would you have to keep constant so that you can tell if it's fertilizer that's making the difference? Matt.
Temperature?
Hang on. Here. Let's decide we can do that and figure out we mean temperature and not temper tantrum. It's science. What else? Yep.
Species of plant.
Oh. Good. In fact, you might even want to take seeds from the same packet. Or you might want to get 2 packets and have half the seeds from each packet in each jar or something to really, really make sure, try and even eliminate that. Brady. Oh. Can I do that? And that's our abbreviation for water? What else? Frowns, is that a hand up? Thought you did that. No? Can you think of something else? I'm putting you on the spot, I know. Ah, good, good. I was hoping someone would come up with that. What else? There's one that's so stupidly obvious you might forget about it because it might not even come up. I don't know, but it may very well be that a different container might allow the roots to expand a different way, and you might get a different. I mean, and this is why, by the way, especially when you listen to the news and you hear some announcement about medical science, our bodies, human beings, it is so difficult because you have thousands of variables within you. Trying to control for those is so difficult. That's why you'll hear, say a year ago, oh, here's a study that says caffeine prevents cancer. And then 6 months ago, oh, here's a study that says caffeine causes cancer. And then 3 months ago, here's a study that says caffeine has no effect on cancer. It's biology in particular, human beings in particular, because we have to try and control for lifestyle factors. And we got Cole, who plays sports and is really athletic. And then we might have be comparing him to another kid who sits around all day. How do you control that? It's really tough. So there's a few just for plants, for Pete's sake, which aren't that complicated. They don't have personalities. They don't have habits or hobbies. You can control a lot of the stuff there. Type of soil, lots more. We could go on for ages and ages and ages and ages. But instead, let's turn the page. The famous mad scientist. Why did you build a death ray? To take over the world. No, I mean, what mad hypothesis are you testing? Are you just making mad observation? Look, I'm just trying to take over the world, that's all. You're at least going to leave some of the world as a mad control group, right? Sad truth, most mad scientists are actually just mad engineers because they're not using the scientific method. There's going to be lots of that this year. So, 20 minutes left. Yay! Here is your homework. This is called The Simpsons and the Scientific Method. In each of these, you're going to have a little paragraph about one of the Simpsons characters. The first one here says this: Smithers thinks that a special juice will make his workers work faster. He creates 2 groups of 50 workers each, and he tells them to staple a set of papers. Group A is given the special juice to drink. Group B is not given the special juice after an hour. Smithers counts how many stacks of paper. So certainly it looks like this is quantitative because he's measuring. Number 1, what would be a good title for this experiment? What do you think the objective is? What's his hypothesis? Materials. I'm really more interested in what do you think the control group is? What do you think the independent variable is? What's the dependent variable? And what other variables might he have to control to make this a fair experiment? We're going to go over the answers when I see you on Tuesday. I'm not going to be marking this as much right or wrong because there's plenty of gray wiggle room where we can discuss. This is just to kind of wrap your brain around this, okay? Homer, I'll let you read Homer Simpson. Krusty the Clown. And on yours, Lisa's is crossed out, yes? So, do you guys have a weekend coming up? Is this your first weekend since school's back? 20 minutes. If you medium hustle, I suspect you can set this up with no homework for your weekend, okay? If you finish in class, hang on to it. We'll go over it Tuesday. I'm going to assume you can not lose an assignment, and I'll collect them Tuesday.